Hello and welcome back to day 2 of the Scaling Europe coverage of Slush. We are having a great time. I've got some amazing guests lined up for today, including the founders, CEOs of Nothing, DeepL, TrueLayer, and many, many more. So stay tuned. And of course, shout out to Harmonic and Databricks, who are sponsoring all of my coverage of the Slush content. So please do go and check them out. Hello and welcome back to the Scaling Europe show. We are in a snowy Helsinki this morning. I'm joined by Andre, the GM of Revolut People. Revolut People is one of the breakout products of Revolut, alongside many other phenomenal breakout products. Andre joined Revolut 7 years ago when they were still at 150 employees. So we're going to be talking about the journey from being an early Revolut employee to leading Revolut People now and that product and kind of the problems that they solve. So thank you for joining me.
I'm glad to be here.
Can you talk a bit about your role, Revolut People, what it is, and kind of the problems that you solve?
Yeah, so my mission started about 7 years ago, as I was telling you. I started on this journey to help Revolut build a more meritocratic framework when it comes to performance management. Our mission was very simple. I joined the company when we were a startup. We had about 100 people or so. And our CEO felt like the culture was diluting, people were not working on the right things, we weren't getting the right talent coming into the company. So it just felt like, the company was not really continuing in the same path that it started, when in our very early days as a startup. Mm-hmm. So our CEO, he had an Excel sheet, he had everything lined up there, and he was trying to do a sort of performance management process. And one day he realized the Excel sheet is not going to do it. It's not going to scale, right? So we basically went on the market, checked, okay, can we find a tool that can do this thing? And we realized, no, a lot of tools were focused on storing data, just allowing you to put some data there and run some processes, but they weren't advising you on how you should do it. There was no framework on how performance management should be done.
Yeah.
So, classic Revolut, we just try to do it our way, right? So we try to disrupt that part as well. So after many years of research, iterations and so on, we built a performance management team who researched this subject very, very well. Mm-hmm. So we looked into all sorts of external organizations and we got people in to try to research this, and basically we ended up building a framework for performance management and then building a product to make that framework happen. And that's my role as part of Revolut. I'm the general manager of Revolut People. Revolut People is the platform which implements this particular performance management framework for success. Now we are selling this to other companies. Our mission is very simple. We want to replicate the Revolut success in other companies, especially around Europe. So as I was telling you, I'm very passionate about this idea of helping Europe become a tech hub, mm-hmm. more than the other competitor areas on the planet. So I think Revolut has the recipe for it. And now we're trying to replicate this recipe with other companies. Basically.
Amazing. I want to pick up on two things that you mentioned, because you said you went to the market and you saw that they were kind of data tools, but they didn't have the sort of the guidance or the support to kind of coach other companies to kind of how to run performance management well.
Yeah.
Can you talk on how do you solve the data issues? How did you go from spreadsheet data to a robust data infrastructure that kind of scales for your company and everyone else? And then can we talk about what value do you provide on the sort of the performance management advice, coaching stuff as well?
Yeah, I think those are two very good questions. So just to pick on your first question about the data, and then we can talk about the advice if you want. I think, the whole framework that we have is based on 3 pillars, and you saw it in our presentation, and I'll explain it just briefly for your audience. It's very simple. There are three pillars. Mm-hmm. It's all about working on the right goals. So the first problem I identified was that people were not maybe really working on goals that were aligned with the business. Mm-hmm. So the first thing is alignment on goals, right? Making sure that everybody works on things that are beneficial for the strategy of the company.
Yeah.
And this is the Revolut secret, if you want, right? As soon as we introduced this, we saw higher engagement towards the right things, and that pushed the company forward faster. So that's the first pillar. And goals, you were asking about the data. Our goals are mostly hard metrics. So, we pick the problems that we want to work on, and then we try to quantify them. So it needs to be hard data, it needs to be a KPI, a metric. And then you actually see them in the product. They are updating in real time. So for example, a simple metric like number of active users in the system. That's something that updates every day. So when you wake up in the morning, you start your day, you look at the metric, it has updated. So you can see if you're on track, if not. So that's like the first pillar. The second pillar is about skills. So to achieve goals, you need the right skills, right? So, and you need to be in the right team. I was just talking about the idea of putting the right people together with complementary skills. Because as a football team, if you have a team of Messis, they are not going to win anything. So it needs to be, okay, Messi is a good player in his position, we need other good players in their positions, and that's how we end up with the best team. So that's the idea of the skills. That's the second pillar. The third pillar is about values. In Revolut, we are very, very focused on our values. And values is all about behaviors, how people behave, and we believe that by having the right values you can acquire the right skills and you can achieve the right goals. So these are the three pillars that we use. We measure this during the performance review. We try to make it as objective as possible. There are all sorts of things that we added to increase this objectivity, including AI. Like we try to extract data from certain tools and summarize what someone worked on and how well they achieved certain things. Summarizing certain meetings and using the feedback from there and so on. So we try to make it as objective as possible. Nothing is 100% objective in this world we live in, but we try to make it as objective as possible. When it comes to the advice, that's a very interesting question. So although the framework is baked into the product itself, so when you buy the product, you buy the framework pretty much, we also offer a playbook. So, and this is what Quantum Light, which is Nick's VC fund, also worked on. So for companies who are just starting out and maybe they feel like, okay, we are not maybe ready to jump into that and we don't yet have a philosophy, as I said, or a system to implement it in the product, they can just start with that. And there's a set of like rules on how to build a company, if you want the Revolut way, right? Like how to replicate that recipe pretty much. So yeah.
Amazing. And what kind of led to, the decision as one of the preeminent global fintechs to build an HR product?
Yeah.
What was, how did that come about?
We get this question a lot. I think I would say there are two main reasons, if you want. There are many reasons, but there are two main reasons why. I think the first one is what I just mentioned, and we were talking about this earlier. I feel like Europe is very underestimated in terms of its capability as a when I say Europe, I'm talking not only about the European Union, I'm talking about the continent in general.
Yes.
It's very underestimated in terms of like its capability to generate great companies and great technology in general. Like we have the education for it, we have the people for it, we have everything we need. I think what's missing though is the culture, right? So of course, people mention Silicon Valley and the US culture. And that's something that we miss as well. Like the way companies run in Europe is slightly different. The work culture is different, and that makes quite a big difference. So we have the capabilities, we're just missing this like philosophy in terms of how things should be done. And getting back to your question, why did Revolut do this? Because we realized that very early on. Like Nick realized that, okay, there is a problem of culture as well. So how things are done in Europe, it's not gonna work for us. It's not gonna cut it. So we came up with our own culture and our own, we combine certain, if you want, European ideas with certain things from the US and so on. We put different cultures together and we got to this recipe, which is like, if you want, it's the ambition and the drive and the entrepreneurial spirit that you have in the US adapted for the European market. And now we just want to like help other companies be productive, because obviously we want to operate in a very successful environment, and we want every company to be successful, so we can work with them and build even more ambitious products and greater things. And that's number one. We simply want to give back to the European market, if you want, in terms of how performance should be done, how should you run your company, how to replicate this secret, this success by following the recipe. The second one is also that we think that one day we will have, and this is kind of more exciting subject, one day we think we're going to have, if you want, a Revolut workspace similar to Google Workspace, or if you want to call it a Revolut business suite of products, right? And I think Revolut People is a component in that, and you've heard maybe Nick in other presentations talking about his vision to connect the ecosystems, to connect retail with business, and I think this product has a key role to play there. We do HR management as well, and we do payroll reporting. We integrate with payroll processing tools. One day we dream about having an end-to-end flow where the money flows from a business account into a retail account, and it could follow the path of payroll as well. So that's something that potentially we look into doing in the future. So I think, the first thing is like achieving this vision of making Europe, helping Europe be more productive in terms of its capability to produce great technology companies. And the second is this synergy between the business products.
To build the full suite, the full stack of cross-vertical, no longer just fintech, but everything.
Nobody can do that if you think about it. This is going to be our unique value proposition. The idea that you buy one system that can do all things, right? You onboard your people today, and at the end of the month, you click a button and you can pay your people with Revolut for Business. Right? You can process payroll, you can do everything. So this is something that I'm very passionate about, and I think that we can give the market something that cannot
doesn't
be
exist
done
yet.
by any other company.
Amazing. And when you mentioned there the cultural differences, some of the things that you borrowed from the US, can you talk about what those kind of like maybe 2 or 3 of the major things that you think cultural aspects of a business that European tech companies should adopt?
I think, I'm not sure that was the intention. Like, I'm not sure, maybe Nick could say no, there's nothing from there or so on. But my perception, working working in Revolut for 7 years and seeing other companies from Silicon Valley and so on, I can see some parallels there. I can see some similarities. And you mentioned what are a few things that I think European companies should implement. I think, the first one is this drive for this entrepreneurial spirit is very important. This is something the US has, and we don't really have. And I think it comes from their history as well, being a colonial power, and having a lot of people who pretty much left their lives in Europe mostly, and but other places as well, left their lives behind to move to a completely new place. That risk taking is very important. So I feel like in Europe we play things safe sometimes. So like, make sure that you take calculated risks is very important, is the main thing. And then I think the other things are, when you take risks, you're gonna fail sometimes, and that's okay. I think the idea is like, how fast can you get up and how fast can you iterate, right? So the idea is like, we try to get things perfect, but in reality, and this is a role in product management in general, like the faster your iterations, the faster you can like adapt with a flow of water, if you want, the faster you're gonna get to success. So your ability to like try things, fail, and iterate afterwards is very important, is another one, I would say. And I think just to get it back to what I'm doing and to give an advice from my area, which I guess I'm more qualified to give than the others, is I think our culture around talent management and performance management specifically is very different in Europe than in US. I think people in Europe are very used to like a very stable environment where, nothing can happen, nothing can change, and you're safe. And I can understand that, but in the same time, getting stuck in this comfort zone is what kills a lot of innovation in Europe. I would say you have countries with so many regulations in terms of how, for example, like in some countries you can be in probation for 3 months, in other countries you can be in the probation period for 6 months, and so on. And then it makes it very difficult for companies to
scale,
hire people, and retain the best talent and hire the best talent and make sure they keep high performing teams. So I would say, if I could talk with some of these people from the European Commission, or I don't know who makes the rules on this stuff, I would suggest that I think it's good to have laws to protect employees, but you also have to think about protecting companies, right? As I said, talent density, so how many strong performers you have in your company, is a stronger indicator for success. So making sure you have legislation in place that protects the employees but doesn't harm the company's capability to retain, hire, and keep the best talent. I think that's very, very important, I would say. So these are maybe 3 things that I would say.
Amazing. Well, look, thank you. That's all we've got time for today. But thank you so much for joining me. It's been great chatting.
Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome back to the Scaling Europe show. We are still here live in snowy Helsinki. I'm here with Francesco, the CEO and co-founder of TrueLayer, one of the most exciting and innovative fintechs to come out of Europe. How are you doing today? Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's super exciting, and this is day 2 of Slush. I think we are all a little bit slower this morning, like the Slush way.
Yes.
But I'm super excited. Thanks for having me, really.
Yeah, and it was amazing last night to actually have the slush of slush. A few inches of snow. I was like, this is the experience.
100%. It was even snowing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was amazing. Can you touch a bit about TrueLayer? For those who are not familiar, because you're kind of like an infrastructure play. You're powering a lot of the other great fintechs that we have here in Europe. Can you touch a bit about the role that you play in the ecosystem and how the business has kind of changed and developed over the last, several years?
Right. So let me start from what we do, right? And so I think everything starts from we are payment nerds. We really love payments to the degree that we felt that the ecosystem of payments wasn't competitive, wasn't dynamic enough. Dominated by basically 2 big companies, and we believe that payments should be cost efficient, should be secure, should be real time. And we found into account-to-account technologies and open banking the technological means to go and do that, rebuild an entire payment ecosystem. So we started in the UK and then branched out in the rest of Europe, where you see a lot of things going on, and we can talk about that. But fundamentally, we spent a lot of years building the infrastructure in order to move money efficiently from consumer's bank account into the merchant, and the reverse actually too. And then coupling that with a bunch of other higher utility functions, like identity, for instance. This open banking channel has way wider spectrum and an array of functionalities than what you can do with other payment methods. And so just taking full advantage of that. And so we started in 2016.
Yeah.
And I think at that time, little we knew about what was the quality, what was going to be the evolution of APIs. So it was that moment. We started that no banks had an API, so we even have to wait banks to build APIs, right? And sort of fake it till you make it to a large degree. And so we are now in year 9, soon to be year 10. And we process $100 billion of payment volumes, and we are hitting a certain level of financial scale. We are 70 million of run rate, getting into 100 early next year. Really feel good about how the story is panning out to be, but clearly there has been a lot of different moments in this journey, which I think they told us so much, right, about how we look at ourselves and how we look at this ecosystem.
And can you touch on the way that the kind of the open banking ecosystem has changed. I think when you started, it was a really novel, exciting technology. We've now kind of gone through a period of almost maturity and mass adoption. Can you talk about the way that has changed and the impact that that's had on TrueLayer?
Yeah, so I think in 2016, myself and Luca, my co-founder, I think we started from an intuition that if banks are going to start opening up APIs, developers will want to use them, right? And every bank is building their own API, and so there's not such a thing as a common standard. Even when there's one in place, like in the UK, actually the actual integration implementation of each and every one tend to differ. Like every bank adopted those technical standards in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
And so you have to really do the work of like connecting one by one, not just in the UK, but then like across Europe. And so we started from like that point of view. We want to make it easy for developers to just like connect to this new infrastructure and see what's the realm of possible, right? And so that was maybe the early days. And I think we were very good, especially in the UK, at partnering up early on with some of like the iconic brand in financial services, in fintech, right? Like I remember Zopa being like one of our very first customers, Plum, another early customer, and then all the way to Revolut, when Revolut was still like a fast-growing company. They are very much like a fast-growing company today, but like they were just clearly at a very, very different scale. And that was an important moment because I believe Revolut was the very first, scaled consumer application that started to use open banking and TrueLayer as some sort of like technical gateway to open banking for payments. And so up until that moment, everybody were thinking about open banking as predominantly as a data sharing protocol, right? I would want to share my data, and everybody concerned about this data, like who's gonna have this data, what you're gonna do with this data, which of course was true, right? Like I think data has a lot of value into uniquely identify who you are, and then in risk processes, lending, a lot of financial application leverages data. But eventually, the ability of moving money in an extremely efficient way was actually the killer app.
Yeah.
And so around maybe 2019 or so, like we saw payments accelerating like crazy.
Yes.
But like starting to process billions in a matter of months. And so that was the moment where, the haha moment of like, we need to go from some sort of like basic undifferentiated infrastructure, a bank aggregator, into a payment network.
Yeah.
We need to evolve ourselves. We need to continue to build new infrastructure and bridge all the gaps in terms of use cases, how the money moves, and how like different merchants will utilize this network, and just build on top.
Yeah, interesting. One of the things you mentioned is the vast amounts of data, and the data points that you must be astronomical.
Yeah.
How have have there been any scaling issues that you've had with kind of the growth in the data that you've had, the infrastructure that you've had to build to account for the scaling that you've done across Europe?
Yeah, we deal with all sorts of like scaling challenges, and I think the team has been outstanding in that sense. It goes from like data management all the way to transaction per seconds that we can process, and we are trying to set ourselves for a very high standard.
Yeah.
We are at the moment roughly at 20 million payments user in the payment networks, right?
Amazing.
And so in the UK alone, we are probably connected to about 20% of the adult population, probably a little bit more than that, right? And people don't necessarily understand TrueLayer as a consumer brand. It never was the intention, but we are trying more and more to present Pay by Bank as some sort of like consumer brand that they can relate to, right? And this will continue to scale. Like this is scaling very fast, and of course it's not just the UK, but this is now more of a European phenomena in different countries and taking like different shapes and form into maybe branching out into account to account as a broader category.
And can we touch on the European expansion, the adoption of these types of new technologies, pay by bank, open banking? Have you seen a difference in adoption across European countries, and have there been countries that have been kind of leading the charge and quicker to adopt versus others that are kind of slower?
Yeah, absolutely. There's relative and different rate of adoption in different places. I would say if you zoom out a little bit, both in the UK and in Europe, by and large, I think there is some sort of like imperative of trying to have European-owned infrastructure in many different places, including payments.
Yeah.
So this is coming from like the European government. This is coming from the UK national payment vision, and we believe that it's so important that we have some sort of like homegrown set of solutions and more competition, right?
Yeah.
And so and that for us like is critically important. We engage a lot with regulatory bodies both in Europe and in the UK. In the UK, really, like we are now working very closely with regulators, banks to also build the next generation, like the evolution of what like the open banking standards and commercial regime is gonna look like. And I think like the market will like 100x from here in terms of like adoption and what you're gonna be able to do into all the ways into subscription, utilities, e-commerce, like evolving this concept of what is the equivalent of card on file in a pay by bank world, right? And things like that. In terms of different countries, I think the Nordics were very early. You get like maybe Netherlands with Ideal, and then the Nordics. I think like it's been an early adopters and high degree of adoption through different apps and different merchants. That's one of the reasons why we felt like we needed to double down in the Nordics, and we recently acquired a business called Zimpler, which we are super excited about to partner with them and allow our merchants to have a very high quality product, pay by bank product, 8-way product in the Nordics, in Sweden, in Finland, in the Baltics. So I'm very excited about that. And then you look at continental Europe. I think you have those two big countries. You have France and Germany, and there's nothing like a local 8-way network. It's kind of wide open. We have seen, for instance, in France, like really like a spike of adoption of true layer of pay by bank. I think like this year is probably like 300% year on year in terms of like number of transactions that we process.
Wow.
And same thing in Germany with massive different that went live and processing transactions and really like starting to offer alternatives to different payment methods, payment technologies that historically have been like dominating maybe Germany, for instance. I think there are a lot of opportunities there, and then like you have, of course, like different. I think like the quality of APIs is very important. We always took the stance of let's double down whenever like we see conversion rate and quality to be of a certain standard, because below that it's going to be very hard. And so I think in general, like for instance, you have Bizum in Spain that is also gaining traction. We are very excited about that. Blik in Poland, we are very excited about that. And then PS3, which of course, like with every regulation, there's always going to be a lag. We are trying to do our best to inform what are like the changes that needs to happen in order to perfect what maybe 6-7 years ago has been like, some foundation has been put in there, and then now we need to get it into performance.
Talking about, I guess, like regulation, the state of European tech more broadly, we're seeing a real trend around just promoting an optimism and ambition about European tech. How have you found it scaling across Europe? And I guess, a fragmented system with high regulations and different regulations across different countries. Has that been something that has been an ongoing challenge, or has it been okay for you to kind of scale across Europe?
I would say like there are clearly some benefits of the single market, right?
Yeah.
And I think like honestly one of like the biggest challenge that we had from that standpoint was actually after Brexit.
Yeah.
Like we were able to from the UK to access the rest of Europe from a licensing standpoint, like passporting everywhere.
Yeah.
And then at some point we're not able to do that anymore, and so we had to basically do the same thing in Europe, and so like there's added cost, added complexity, right? So I think like that is the moment where like you go and appreciate, you know, the fact that you know the legal framework is common, like you can expand pretty rapidly from that standpoint. I think it remains. You know, Europe is a federation of different states and different culture and different languages, and that's fundamentally, I think, like is the biggest challenge and also opportunity. You look at, we were talking before, like about Revolut. Like I think, like they figured out a playbook to grow fast and go fast into international expansion in different places, different countries, have like last mile of localization that allow them to succeed where many other companies have not. And so I think that European companies need to develop that DNA, accept that that's more of a feature, not a bug, versus US companies that, of course, like it's easier to scale in a single, in a monoculture, monolanguage sort of market, right? But I think that's the fundamental issue, if you want. Everything comes from there. It's kind of like it slows you down, and because it slows you down, like also from an investment perspective, maybe you don't catalyze investment as fast as maybe your US counterparts, monetization, all those sort of things, right? But again, I go back to, I think it's a strength that few companies, some companies manage to overcome and kind of build into this trend. And then when you do that, it's beautiful because like you have this sort of like an incredible barrier of entry for everybody else, right?
Yeah, that's always the interesting thing that founders say is once you push through the barriers of entry, the regulation, the fragmented different, you know, lack of a monoculture, it becomes your moat, right? And not like it's
100%.
so hard for somebody to come in and try and take that away from you when you've worked so hard to get it in all those markets. Like you've had an amazing journey. I want to finish up on some of the highs and some of the lows. You know, looking back over the almost 10 years of TrueLayer, what was the standout, amazing moment where maybe you the technology was working, or you had a merchant, maybe a Revolut, using it, or something which made you think, okay, this is going to work. We've got something here. This is going to be a great business.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of like haha moment. I think, going back to the initial story, like when we saw the first like payments going through. I think it was a conviction bet at that point. Like no one really ever connected to a bank to make a payment, and I remember one of our very early employee, like he hacked something, and then he got called by a bank saying like, what's going on here? Like we see something very strange, and like he realized that it was the first one in the UK to have made like an open banking payment, and nobody was even ready for that. So I think we had a lot of those moments where you work for a very long time on a direction, and then all of a sudden it works, and like you reach scale, and I think like that's incredibly rewarding. I'm very much like a long-term thinker, planner in that sense. Like my satisfaction comes to you put the work in, and you go through this source of like test of like, is it gonna work, is it not gonna work, and you trust your gut and intuition, and when you succeed, it's the most rewarding moment ever, amazing. Right? And I would say on the reverse, like maybe the biggest regrets always end up being not a follow through the intuition, the sort of like the gut instinct in a way, right? Like when you're kind of like you know it, but then like you don't have like full courage, or something like discourage you to go in a single direction, and then like later on like you kind of understand, like I kind of knew it. Like that to me is always like like a big source of frustration, when like deep inside that something like is turning out to be true, and then like you're kind of like not there or whatever, right? Like, and so I think like we are always trying to, like we have a culture where we try to make a lot of mistakes,
Yeah.
and I think like we try to say, let's try to make as many mistakes as possible. What is never acceptable is to make the same mistakes twice, right?
Yeah,
like not
interesting.
learning from our
Yeah,
mistakes.
yeah.
And clearly we made a few throughout the journey. We learned, and I think like as a company, like you build resilience through those moments.
Yeah, and you've persevered and stuck around, and you've become one of the most exciting and leading fintechs in Europe. But I think that's really interesting that you mentioned that it's the things that you didn't have conviction on, or the things that you had that gut instinct and you didn't follow through. Those are the mistakes, the regrets, more than doing something and picking the wrong direction. But look, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great to have you.
Thank you so much, and enjoy Slush.
Thank you very much. Hello, welcome back to Scaling Europe show. I'm here with Jarek, the CEO of DeepL. DeepL is one of the most amazing European companies that I have. I think it's an amazing mission. You've done incredibly well. You've built and scaled what is now a phenomenal business across Europe. So thank you so much for joining me and taking the time.
Thank you for being with you over here at Slush.
Yeah, we love it. So can you touch a bit about the journey of DeepL? You've built this amazing product to break down the barriers between European languages and global languages, and I want to get into kind of where that vision, that mission came from.
Yeah, I mean, like, we started in 2017, which was basically the point in time when kind of deep learning, like the basics and the foundations for what we know as AI nowadays.
Yeah.
Back then, nobody called it AI really. There was the moment when this has all been emerging. Maybe a little bit in the background, maybe a little bit in academia, maybe not everyone out there in the world has already been there.
Yeah.
But we kind of really seen like this technology is going to be game changing for kind of anything language related. We've seen like these models surpass anything that's out there on the market. And therefore we also seen like this moment, okay, this is the point in time when you can break in. Like, yeah, there is big offerings from like big tech on this, but they're gonna have to like throw everything away that they had until now and go with this flow. And this is the opening when you as a startup can come in and create something amazing.
Yeah.
So, and then like out of this, like really this very typical, I think, PLG-ish kind of motion that we've seen, like first a lot of self-serve, a lot of adoption of free usage, and then kind of doing our homework and walking our steps onto kind of more and more sophisticated use cases, more and more sophisticated customers, like up to enterprise basically.
Yeah, amazing. And was it a case of the technology is now available, so now let's build this thing? Or did you feel like, okay, the current providers are not good enough, and maybe you felt passionate about this space, maybe this was something that was close to your heart? What was it about, I don't know, translations and languages that made you think this is the right time, we've got the technology, I want to build this product?
Yeah, I think it was about the availability of this technology.
Yeah.
Like we've just seen this technology on like, oh wow, like this is gonna be pretty damn cool, and you can do something about that. Like, yeah, we knew the language problem. I think that is part of that, and maybe I'm just kind of underestimating that a little bit. I'm more a technologist rather than a language person, I have to say. But still, like I speak 3 languages, and like you're kind of sitting in Germany with like friends across the border, Belgium across the border, like you know the problem. But maybe I just underestimate the importance of that. For me, it was mostly about the technology and hey, we can do
amazing
cool
things.
Research that is going to actually have an impact from day one on people's lives.
Yeah, amazing. And I think DeepL's differentiator or kind of USP has been the quality of the translations, right? And, insane quality that is globally recognized. We're seeing the rise and the improvement of all these other LLMs, these frontier models.
Yeah.
How do you look at them? Do you see them as a threat? Do you think that they're never going to be able to specialize, contextualize well enough to compete? Or do you think, okay, we need to do more to make sure we kind of stay ahead?
Yeah, I mean, like the availability of general purpose AI, basically, like everybody has AI at their fingertips somewhere, like whether it's built in your phone or in your search, or like you have a ChatGPT subscription, wherever, like there's AI everywhere, and companies are also embracing that, of course. So the kind of availability of kind of good translation, that is now the reality for everyone.
Yes.
But that's been kind of planned into our business model from the beginning on. Like we knew we're fighting against big platform players out there who once again, they own your operating system, they own your phone. So we knew we can't compete there really.
Yeah.
So we very, very early decided also not only to focus on quality itself, but also focus on the application of that quality in a business, like in those areas where quality matters and where kind of each and every small piece of quality that you can add on top of what is maybe available generally makes a difference of whether you're going to have to make one mistake in a whole contract that one correction in a whole contract, or whether there's no corrections at all and it's perfect out of the box. So kind of getting the the nuances ready still makes a huge difference.
And I think that's what I hear about a lot of people who are kind of maybe in like AI applications, where it's the context that they have acquired either in their previous jobs or the companies that they're building, means that it's so hard for the model, like the front-end models, to actually do what they do because they don't have that context, they don't understand the real use cases. I want to talk also about like your product roadmap. How do you prioritize the applications of these technologies themselves versus going deeper and higher quality on the languages versus more and more languages? How do you think about what to build for who and when?
Yeah, I mean, like funny moment for you to ask, because we've been always very focused and very concentrated on a smaller set of languages, and it was kind of the kind of common answer. Like DeepL is doing like 30 something languages, but they're doing them great,
amazingly well.
We have actually expanded that offering to over 100.
I think it's
basically last week. I think
I thought it was like a beta or something. Is it? Or
no, that's live now for everyone in production, this has been like a very, very much requested functionality by our customers who, like the huge part of their content that they need to translate is still in those 30 languages that we've been supporting for a while. But here and there, they do have also other languages, our other language requirements, and they want to have like just one single provider for all of it. So this is like a very clear reaction on this. Other than that, I mean, like, we're really focusing now much more on kind of enterprise customers and their needs. It is about kind of going deeper on the product side, but not on a product side like only from an application layer, but also building the functionalities in the AI that's going to support this product.
Interesting.
That's gonna allow, I don't know, like a customer to like fully control their language, so it's FDA compliant if you're a health care company in the US or something like this. So there's a lot of examples of how you can actually leverage having control of the technology and put that throughout the whole stack up into the product and into the application for particular customer use cases. But for that, you got to really deeply understand what your customers are doing in language, and that's kind of always a big question because translation is so broad. Like you can use it for anything.
And how do you stay close to your customers, those enterprise clients? How do you make sure that you are building further nuances and the use cases of these very specific?
Talk to them, and like talk to them really across the whole company. Like we have folks from our research teams who are sitting together with customers and trying to understand what they're doing. Like, of course, you can't do it for each and every one, but you have to do as much of this as possible or as reasonable in order to get nearer to them.
Amazing. And when we talk about these clients that you work with, what's your go-to-market motion? You mentioned product-led growth at the beginning. You're often working with these large and sometimes more traditional industries. How are you able to kind of get your foot in the door, get into the rooms, pitch them, sell them, and convince them of your product?
I think our approach has been kind of bottoms up, and like PLG, like we've established this brand that DeepL is the specialist for anything language related. And I mean, okay, we can talk maybe a little bit about our new products, which are actually going outside of the language space. But for the sake of this question, like people do know that DeepL is the go-to place to go. And in the past, that was basically it. I think right now we're then engaging in much deeper conversations. Like we're just leveraging this, but then it's just like this kind of door opener to our customers, and then we can engage with them into conversations like, okay, what is your kind of highly critical translation needs, language needs that are most core to your business, what you're doing. If you're, for example, like a professional services company that is working across the whole Europe, you're going to have your specialist on a specific topic sitting in France, but you have your customer in Germany who needs this expertise.
Yeah. Okay.
How do you bring them together? Do you hire new people or kind of grow them in Germany, or do you just take your French experts and use DeepL Voice to kind of have live translation in all of the meetings that you have with your clients?
Yeah, interesting.
And that needs like a little bit more focus on the company itself, and a lot of our go-to-market build out was actually into this direction.
Love it. And you mentioned the new product. I wanted to talk about the vision of DeepL down the line.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the new product, what it means for the business, and kind of, where it's come from?
Yeah. I mean, like you've asked me earlier, like how DeepL has come to, like how did we build it, and why did we build it? Like for me, it was like all about the kind of excitement about AI and how that can change the kind of the way that we're working.
Yeah.
I think translation was an amazing place to kind of start, because this was like the first area where AI really made like this difference that was not only like on paper, that was not only a proof of concept, it really kind of changed this industry.
Yeah.
And we kind of, like, while we're known for this language aspect and for translation, for us it was always about AI and making that applicable, making research applicable, making research work in products, like in real life use cases. And out of this, like at some point in time, we decided, okay, we want to go out also a little bit out of language. Like there's bigger fish to fry actually. Like AI can do even more, and we're still incredibly excited about that. And we think with the DeepL agent, which is just it is a pretty horizontal agent that can help organizations just to be more efficient in anything that is kind of administrative, and anything that is kind of sitting maybe in finance, maybe in legal ops, maybe in people ops, like abstract away all of those workflows that are kind of still very manual nowadays. We've moved quite far along in terms of automation as a civilization, but not really that far away.
Yeah, there's a long way to go.
We still all do copy paste all of the time, and, and kind of one of my mantras in this is like no copy paste anymore. Like
nice.
this needs to be gone, and we're kind of following a similar approach that we did for language in that, where we kind of bottoms up created a product which was simple to use and for everyone, so that everyone has democratized access to translation and can do it on their own. And we are following in the same tracks with our agentic approaches, like just give it to 10, 20, 50, 100, all of your employees, and let them figure it out, because people are actually pretty amazing at taking AI and building workflows with that. And we've seen like such incredible ingenuity with our customers there.
Amazing. I mean, it sounds like an amazing product development to go alongside and adjacent to DeepL. I want to talk about your experience. You a European company born and bred, right? Amazing success across Europe. In Germany, Germany itself gets a lot of stick sometimes for, I don't know, startup culture.
Rightfully so, I guess, to some extent,
I want to get into like what has been some of the best things about building from Europe, and then what have been some of the hardest things about building from Europe.
I think the good thing for us was the understanding of the product that we started with. Translation, it's just like, if you're sitting in the Bay Area and the only language that you've ever learned is English, you don't get the problem space. And like we always talk about the fact that you have to understand your customers, you have to understand your users, you have to understand your problem. And that's just hard if you're not building out of Europe for this particular case. Obviously, kind of access to talent. I think we haven't run into that much competition, especially at the beginning when we've been building the company, comparing maybe to where you would be if you were in like one of the big centers and big hubs. So that's definitely good, and kind of also access to the markets. Like if you're building out of Europe, you are being recognized for being a European company. I do think that matters. I think that helps you in adoption in those markets, and there was a strong correlation between who our customers were, like once again because of what the product is.
Yeah, of course.
And where we've been sitting. So I think it all kind of fitted pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing example of a European company that could only ever have been built in Europe because of a lot of the things that other people criticize, which is the lack of a monoculture, all of the languages, the different countries that we have. But it created the grounds for you to build the business that you've built. And only a European company could have done that in Europe. And which I think is an amazing example.
But then at the same time, you got to be also cautious. And I was like always very, very obsessed about the fact that we do not limit ourselves to Europe. Like we're sitting in Europe, and like we're maybe built out of Europe, and there's a lot of this kind of diversity and kind of European DNA in all of this. But like, if you're in tech, you have to target the global markets. I think there might be niches where you really want to go like very, very specific onto Europe or even specific countries, but in general, like look at the biggest companies that have built out of Europe. They've been built out of Europe, but at some point in time they said we want to serve global markets, and that's incredibly important.
And how early in your journey did you go
super early,
like as soon as you could?
Super early. I think for us, maybe different to other companies, Asia was the kind of market that we've expanded first.
Yeah.
That's once again because of the product and the traction there. Anybody else would kind of start with the US, I guess. This is the typical one. For us, it was Asia first and US next then.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty early because of this.
Amazing. And look, to finish up, I want to get two questions. I want to talk about the best moment that you've had in your DeepL career, the moment where you've thought, oh my God, this is going to work. Maybe a technological breakthrough, a commercial partnership, where you've realized, okay, this is going to happen. Yeah. And then the worst moment, right? A low point where you've been like, up against the wall, how do we get through this?
Yeah, I think honestly, like really the best moments come always from kind of new things that we can offer and us starting to see that these are coming through. And I do see a lot of that for the DeepL agent and kind of the early kind of things coming through, but it's still going to go back a little bit more for DeepL voice. And I think the first meeting that I had with a Japanese customer where we had DeepL voice running in the room in the meeting, and how much of a real game changer that was for me. For once, I can really understand this customer. I know what they want, and they can understand me, and it's like, oh my God, like
that's amazing.
The world has changed. The world has changed right now.
I love founders whose best moment is always like a customer experience or a user experience moment. Because it's like, it says a lot about the founder and how product obsessed and customer obsessed you are. But I love that, like seeing your user or your customer use the product and live the experience must be amazing. And then what about the hardest moment?
Yeah, I think, honestly, like there was a moment when in this whole kind of rise of AI and not really that much of kind of competition coming up, but like uncertainty coming up. Like this market being just like so dynamic, and there's so much noise coming up, and there's like basically like there's a bubble that is forming around us, and like we're in the middle of it, and we've been around for quite a while and haven't seen it. And there was a moment when I kind of lost maybe my faith, or where things have been hard for me personally, and I had to kind of sit down and like focus a little bit and close my eyes mentally maybe, and kind of realign to what the world looks like right now. And that was probably like one of the hardest kind of emotionally moments for me to kind of go through. But I think that's just like probably one of those typical, like you're a founder, you're kind of growing with the company, you're growing with the market, and you just gotta absorb that. And everybody kind of breaks at some point in time in that, and you just have to figure out, are you able to get out of there, or are you not able to get out of there? Are you and how do you do that for yourself?
And how did you manage to kind of get through that?
A lot of work with a coach, like an amazing coach that I had at this point in time, but also talking to my board, talking to my investors. They've been like amazing companions on this journey, like amazing people, getting like actually talking about those problems with them, and like doing a little bit of a therapy session with your board maybe. Like
amazing. Well, look, thank you so much for joining me. It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing the highs and the lows.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Hello and welcome back to the Scaling Europe show. We are here in Helsinki. I'm with Michael from Corium. You've got the product. Give us the intro, give us the pitch. What are you building?
Yeah, well said. First, thanks for having me here.
My
I really
pleasure.
enjoyed it. It's great to be here at Slush with you and whatnot. So what's Corium? Corium is a company that makes beautiful leather. We do that involving no cows and no animals at all. And so there's obviously a massive sustainability benefit to what we do and an ethical benefit to what we do, but it's really about how do we make beautiful, amazing product.
Amazing.
Because actually what most people don't know is that working with leather and like how leather contributes to all the products we know, whether it be a car seat or a handbag or whatnot, it's actually really difficult for companies. And it's really expensive for them. And so we can make a uniform, beautiful, really consistent product that not only makes
it's amazing.
Beautiful leather, but it actually means that the car seat or the handbag and the process by which companies make them is better, cheaper, more reliable, and ultimately making just something beautiful that we can all covet. And so we love to think about a beautiful product with a great impact on the world.
Amazing. And how do you make it? I mean, it's great. I mean, it's amazing. Like, can you talk about the process?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's real leather. But what we do is we basically take the best that Mother Nature has given us, and we just make it much more efficient. Today, if you want leather from a cow, you obviously a cow has to be birthed and grown and then ultimately slaughtered, and you get the leather. For us, what we do is we're able to isolate the bovine fibroblast, its skin cell, very similar to what you and I have. And what we do is we then put that through a process that we've developed, a cellular agricultural process. We actually use those cells to just very specifically, very efficiently, and very precisely build the skin, build the leather. And so all you get is this very uniform collagen material, tissue, that you're then able to drop directly into the existing tannery supply chain and build the same leather that you need today. And so it's really about getting exactly the same product, but in a much more efficient, better, and kind of smarter end result.
And how did you come to this? Like, can you talk about your experience coming to this and your background that's led you to building this amazing product?
Yeah, well, as you can hear probably from my accent, I'm an American, so not from Europe originally. But my background and my career has always been about bringing new innovation to market. And for really actually personal reasons, my wife and I, she's originally from Belgium, we moved to Europe a couple years ago, and as part of that I used it as an opportunity to kind of pivot my career. I'd worked the last decade or so for Nike, and actually at Nike we were very focused on how could we bring high performance, really wonderful technology and innovations that consumers would covet to market, but also ones that would drive a real improvement in our supply chain and drive a sustainability impact. And so I had the chance to do that with a number of products at Nike. And I came away from that saying, the ability to do that and the opportunity to do that is just so motivating, so exciting. How do I go find a great technology where I can help do that, where I can bring my expertise? And so moving to Europe, I was able to fortunately get connected to Corium, and what I saw was the ability to take what is one of the largest markets in the world. Leather is $100 billion market a year. It's crazy. I mean, it's everywhere. Just look around this room. Leather is ubiquitous. And so we had a technology there where we could say, okay, let's go, really, revitalize. We like to say reinvent it. And the technology comes from University of Maastricht. There's a professor there, a guy named Dr. Mark Post, who's really kind of the founder of this field. And so I was able to link up with him and some of the other founders that were around, and we've been off to the running for the last couple of years now.
And you've just raised a big round. How much, who from, and kind of what enabled it?
Yeah, so we're really very fortunate, feel very grateful. We just closed our Series A. We raised 22 million euros.
Amazing.
Which is awesome. Real kudos to the whole team and everybody who's been a part of that. But yeah, I mean, how did that came together? I think really was a couple of things. One is that people understand that leather is a material that's unmatched. And they understand that nobody has been able to replace it despite a lot of efforts. And so really there is a learning now that is very clear that the only way you're going to replace leather is with leather. And what's obvious in that is that it's not just a sustainability story. That's very much a part of who we are and a part of our ethos and the founding origin of the company. But really it's about making better product, right, that results in kind of the goods and the pieces that consumers love. And brands are obsessed with being able to serve them. And so we really see that as being the avenue to not only build a very exciting company, but also build something very impactful. And I think our investors really see that too. And I think that's what stood out, is that we have kind of this unique opportunity, this unique technology. And then behind the scenes, I think we have really a team and kind of all the, what I like to say, the conditions of success necessary for us to be able to scale this and grow it. And so I'm pretty excited about that, and I think our investors were too.
Amazing. And what kind of stage of the journey are you at? So you've obviously got it, you've built the technology, you're developing leather in a whole new way. Are you actively selling it? Are you going out to market? Is it in real products that people can buy or use? What stage are you at like that?
Yeah, no, so we're still relatively early in our journey, having just raised the Series A. We have now really developed both what I like to say the product and the process.
Yeah.
And so we feel very confident in the quality of the product as well as the process to make it. What our Series A funds for us is the ability to industrialize that process. And so what we're really doing is starting to scale up from sizes that are more like what you see here into sizes that will be first about the size of this table and then beyond that. And so we're really in the phase of getting it to where we can be really commercial with it.
Yeah.
And so we haven't yet started to sell the product. We're working with a number of customers, names you would know, and really fun, sexy companies. Unfortunately, I can't talk about that. And so what we're going to see now is we're going to go from kind of co-developing in that into start really commercializing that. And so it's an exciting time for us, but we got a lot of work ahead of us still.
Yeah, of course. And when you look at these kind of partners that you can't mention, who are the right kind of partners that you're looking for? Is it, I don't know, people who use leather in their car seats? Is it bigger than that? Is it consumer-facing stuff? Who are the ideal customers or partners for your product?
Yeah, I think what we look for most is for people who obsess leather, for whom the heritage, the quality, right, kind of the luxury of leather is just integral to who they are, not just as a company, but frankly their brand and their brand image. And so we're really focused on brands that are, kind of at that, call it top 30 or so % of the leather market. And so these are really, the higher end brands, whether it be luxury leather goods companies who are primarily in Paris or that area, or more of the automotive companies that are in Germany and other parts of Europe. And so we're focusing on that space right now. And it's not that we don't see a wide appeal and a wide, kind of market for us. We do. We see that over time. But for right now, to focus on these companies for whom leather is so core to who they are, and they have the expertise and the depth, and then we can co-develop with them, and we can really come in and say, okay, we can give them a beautiful leather that actually really makes their products better and makes their footprint much better.
Yeah.
Like that's just a win-win-win. And so those are the collaborations we're working on now.
Amazing. When you look to the future, when you look at the actual development and the build of this product, how much can you industrialize it? Can you imagine a future where you are creating tons of this, in a week, a month, a year? What does the future look like?
Yeah, absolutely. We believe this is totally scalable, and we can get it to a place where there's absolutely no price premium, and that is our goal. In fact, we want to go to market with no green premium, because we really actually don't believe that green premium exists. People are going to buy our product because it's beautiful leather that makes their products better, and then because it also drives a sustainability impact, right?
Amazing.
But it has to be all the things. I very much believe in, as I lead Corium, we are a product company. It's about making beautiful products that, kind of really people want. So we'll get there. It's going to take some time for us to do it, but we see that, we'll get to a place where we can be making, really millions of square meters of leather per year and start to really make an impact on the overall leather supply chain. So yeah, we want to get it to scale. It's going to take us a little bit of time to get there, but we see that path very clearly.
You've just raised the Series A. Looking forward to the Series B. Are there things, milestones that you've got to do to kind of unlock that next stage? And is it about, creating the table size of leather?
Yeah.
Is it about commercializing? What are the things that you have to achieve to kind of get to that next stage?
Yeah, well, trust me, we just closed the Series A, and I raised 22 million. I'm like, I should get a day off. Nope, we immediately start thinking about the Series B. We're right into it. And it's really that's such an important question, because it is, what are we going to need to achieve to ensure that we can be successful in that stage? And we're already walking back from that step right now. So I think it's a couple of things. So for us, one is it is going to be able to demonstrate the full industrialized manufacturing size. So obviously this is great, but we need to get to a place where we're making it at square meters. And we're already on our way to doing that.
Okay.
So that will be a clear kind of milestone and goal for us.
Yeah.
I think the second thing is really going to be, can we make our process more efficient? So this is essentially a living process, right? We're working with cells, and that bioprocess, as we talk about it, we know that we have to drive efficiencies, and we measure 8 key metrics as part of that
Got it.
that demonstrate and get us to a place of higher efficiency. And then you hit on it, the third one, and in some ways the most important is, can we take the next commercial steps?
Yeah.
And for me, what I'm really excited about is getting to a point where we can start to talk about the work we're doing with certain companies, and then actually have signed commitments from them in terms of offtake agreements and other sorts of very contractually solid partnerships.
Got it.
That's going to be really important for us too.
Interesting. I also want to talk about you being an American here in Europe, right? This show is all about, the company's all about, it's called Scaling Europe. It's all about taking European tech to the next level. And a lot of what I hear and a lot of the people I speak to, I had Gabe, one of the co-founders of Harvey AI in America.
Okay, very cool.
I had two big American VCs on the show yesterday. I'm always interested in hearing an American's perspective from the cultural and technological differences that we see from Europe to the US. What do you see? Having lived in America, worked in amazing companies in America, now in Europe, do you see big cultural differences in the way that we kind of approach building companies?
Yes. Period. Okay, next one. No, so it's been really interesting for me. I started my career actually as an investor, and then I did a lot of startup work, and then I worked for Nike, a very large global company, for a long time. Coming, from the United States, coming to Europe, and joining a venture-backed startup, right? That's it's a lot of change, right?
Yes.
It's a lot of movement, and I was ready for really kind of as big a change as possible. And frankly, I've seen that in some places and not in others, in ways that have surprised me.
Interesting.
Which has been really, really eye-opening. But overall, I do believe, just to put it kind of at the highest level, Europe is a great place to build companies.
Yes.
But it has its pros and it has its cons. I think Europe the cons get focused on a lot.
Yeah.
And there's always a little bit of the younger sibling or the less accomplished, because it always gets compared to America, and that's fair and whatnot. But frankly, I think we have to look at what are the pros and cons in Europe, what are the pros and cons in the US, and how can we build an environment where we can get the best of both worlds right now. And I actually think there's a really unique opportunity right now for Europe to play a very important role, not just to improve its economy, not just to kind of drive the development for its people here, but really on the global stage. Because what does Europe do best? Right? What have I seen here? Incredibly predictable, reliable, frankly mature. Right? When things are, kind of in works, they're going to get done. They may not get done quickly, but they're going to get done very well. And then there's just an ultimate, kind of culture around, intellectualism and raw science and exploration in that way. And I think so. You have just a lot of very, kind of good benefits and good foundations there. Where Europe fails is one, the funding environment is much tougher.
Yes.
Just period. There's much less money here. Getting that money is much harder.
Yeah.
So that's difficult. The bureaucracy truly is much worse. And I use that word in the literal sense, not in the pejorative sense. Just having closed around, the steps we had to jump through to do that from a legal perspective, from a diligence perspective, frankly, it was just much tougher and took much more effort and time. And so that friction does add up. So that's a big piece. I think then from a cultural perspective, from your employees and kind of the environment, we're fortunate. We have an amazing team that are super committed to our mission. But overall, it's very different than when I was working in New York, when people are just 24 hours a day, really running and gunning. And again, pros and cons there, right?
Yeah, of course.
But when it comes to just purely building a company, you really do see that difference. And so I think now there's just a really unique opportunity, considering what's going on in America. Frankly, the step back from science, frankly, some of the unpredictability that's been driven there.
Yeah.
The kind of lack of open arms for talent from all over the world.
Yeah.
And so I think there's an opportunity now for Europe to kind of say, we've got that great base. How do we lean into some of our weaknesses to get better?
Yes.
To remove some of that friction, to get it to be more of one market, to have a culture that will expect failure and frankly celebrate that because they see that as the road to success.
Yeah.
And I think there's just a chance there. And I'm actually really happy to kind of be an American who can hopefully help push that a little bit.
Yeah.
Not just to make Quorium a success, but hopefully help that be a little bit of a model for how we work more broadly. And so I'm really bullish, but at times I bang my head against the wall. And I just, got to keep the bigger picture in mind. And so, it's always easy wherever you are to focus on the cons.
Yeah.
I think it's like, and Slush is awesome because you see this community here. This is the community that's trying to push the bounds of what Europe can be.
100%, yeah.
And I've been really impressed at how many Americans are here and how much opportunity they're coming over, not just to try to strip the innovation and pull it to America, but actually support it here.
Yeah.
And so that's been fun.
Yeah, and I think opening that sort of like the two-way street between American and European tech is opening up more. And I completely agree about the opportunity that Europe has, and especially when you talk about the problems and the issues, for the first time it feels like we have the politicians who really want to address them. And even yesterday, Ursula, from the EU was talking about stripping back the bureaucracy. And one of the examples that I tweeted about was cookies, the cookie banners.
Yeah.
Americans laugh at us because every time you're on a website, you've got to give your cookie selection.
It literally drives me crazy.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And yesterday they were like, we're going to get rid of that. You do it once for 6 months and you never have to see it again.
Yeah.
And it's like things like that.
It sounds silly, but those things matter.
But it's just the attitude that those are the things that we've been focusing on for the last couple of decades is those types of bureaucracies and processes and regulations.
I mean, just, frankly, like opening a new bank account.
Yeah.
Like the challenge to do that as opposed to doing that in the United States. And you say, okay, well, maybe there's good reason why that makes it. It's like, no, there's no more fraud on these. Like, how do we just remove that friction? And the cookie one is like a great example. That's the canary in the coal mine, right?
Yeah.
Like, if we can start to make some progress there, what else can follow?
And it was probably well-intentioned at the time, but nobody cares, right? Just get rid of it.
It's just friction.
Sometimes I accept, sometimes I deny. I don't care. I just want to get rid of it. But it's that mindset of like adding these unnecessary barriers, which in the moment take 10 seconds, but they speak to a much wider culture and attitude. Yeah. And seeing that change at the policy level is like is amazing for us right now.
And for me, what it comes down to is I always think about what percentage of my time am I spending on things that add value to my business, and what percentage am I spending on things that do not add value to my business. And right now, in Europe, the percentage that I spend on things that are not value add, it's hard for me to put a precise number on it, but it's meaningfully higher than what I would have.
And especially going through like funding processes, right? And you talked about it, the bureaucracy and it being different in different countries, and Germany's especially bad, but I mean, even just creating and forming a company in Europe can be really painful. The UK is quite good at it, but other European countries is just...
Yeah, and I think we're seeing progress in other places. Like it's interesting. I was talking about this earlier today. I've seen a lot of American friends of mine who are entrepreneurs who are running international businesses. They've seen a lot of progress in France and seen France really leaning into supporting and trying to reduce the bureaucracy, drive and support business growth, especially attracting international talent. That's been great to see. I think the Netherlands, where I'm based, hasn't leaned into it quite so much and has an opportunity to still do so.
Yeah.
The Netherlands has a lot of advantages too, especially just how prevalent English is there.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think they have an opportunity to lean into it, but they haven't yet done it in the same way. So I'm hoping we're starting to see some movement there.
Yeah, and I think the ecosystem in Amsterdam, the tech ecosystem is growing, and you're getting some quite big tech companies come out of there. And I think you need that environment and that ecosystem to then be the ones who are kind of like asking for the change.
Yeah. It's always disappointed me though, because a lot of those big companies in the Netherlands, they're always threatening to leave.
Yeah.
And some have left.
Yeah.
But then some have left, some have threatened to leave just to try to put some leverage out there so that like they get what they need to continue being there. And there's a couple of big companies that, frankly, if the Netherlands were to lose them, the impact would be massive. And so I really hope, and I think you do see some recent elections and whatnot, I think you see more awareness of this.
Yes.
But I want to see some more action on it.
And a pro-action as well.
And the culture that comes with that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, look, thank you so much for joining me, Mike. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah.
I look forward to kind of seeing you grow and develop and roll it out further.
Yeah. Awesome. Appreciate it.
So that was the first batch of interviews and they were great, but we've got more to come, so stay tuned. And of course, please do check out Harmonic and Databricks who are sponsoring this. So thank you very much. Hello, welcome back. I'm here with Dora from Quantum Light. Quantum Light is one of the most interesting and innovative and different kind of VCs that we've seen, kind of found by Nick from Revolut. So look, thank you for joining me. And
thank you for having me.
Can you give a quick introduction into Quantum Light? What is it? Why was it set up? And how is it different to traditional VCs?
Yeah, so I mean, the Quantum Light is the first AI-driven VC, basically, right? So the background is it was founded a couple of years ago by Nick Storonsky, who was the founder of Revolut, with the idea of just building something new and creating a new VC product for both investors and founders. And the way that we do that is we are completely AR driven in our decision making. So we have our own proprietary models that make all investment sourcing and selection for us. And we follow basically what the data tells us.
And what data do you look at, do you capture to kind of feed into those models?
So it's all publicly available information. Our model looks at all different data sources that we've put together. We have a big in-house tech team that is working around the clock on improving this and incorporating new data. But it's basically things that an investor would look through their desktop research. It's things around the talent in the company, it's things around the founder, the competition, the history of fundraising and their investors, but really putting a systematic lens on top of it and making sure, like, as leaving the machine to pick up those patterns over human.
And it's generally sort of like not late stage, but sort of like breakout growth stage.
We focus at Series B+.
Series B+, yeah.
We do pretty much anything tech. Hardware is the one thing that we do. We invest globally. We have portfolio companies in the US and Europe. And really the thing that we're looking for is a good signal from our model, and that's what we do.
And what is the output of the model? Is it like a percentage? Is it like a thumbs up, invest? What does that look like?
So it's a scoring model, right? So it creates a ranking of the companies that it sees out there. So it ranks through thousands of companies, and we focus at the top of that list, and that's what we go with.
So it's constantly ranking, scoring all of the kind of startups out there at the moment.
Any company that is within our scope, it will rank it, and it will be assessed by our model based on all the data that is out there.
So I think what's interesting is that this is not like a classic, a startup goes out to raise, then the VCs do their due diligence. This is you as a firm being like, here's our top 10. Does that give you a really unique advantage, especially when it comes to things like preemptions?
I mean, we go ahead with very high conviction, right? When we speak to a company, we know that we're very interested in them. And so this gives founders also a very different experience. We're able to turn around offers much, much quicker than the average VC would. We don't need to, take the multiple weeks and to developing a long thesis around something in order to be able to go ahead. It's really just a different process overall. So definitely, I would say.
So you're able to get there earlier, move quicker, and from your perspective as an investor, how different is your job, do you think, to an investor at a traditional firm where it is all about finding the startups and building the relationships and then doing the due diligence? You've got this model to do so much for you.
I think we're supercharged in a way by our models. It gives us the opportunity to look at so many different things and things that are under the radar and be there first, as you said. I think our role still is about making the connections and making sure that we are also adding value to the founder and making sure that whatever investment we make, there's something that we can bring to the table. So far AI has not replaced that part.
Yeah.
So that's still something that we're mostly focusing on.
And what do you see that value as being from Quantum Light?
I think a lot of our value stems from our DNA and our relation to Revolut.
Yeah.
The systems that Nick used at Revolut and came up with at Revolut and implemented, and the learnings throughout the year, that's something that we're trying to bring into our portfolio companies as well.
And you've written some of the playbooks, right?
Yeah.
So some of the things that Revolut and Nick did phenomenally well, you've documented, you've captured. Can you talk a bit about some of those?
Yeah, so I think throughout Revolut, what has been really the common denominator is that a very systematic approach of doing things. And so what we did was really sit down with Nick and make sure that we capture some of that systems into playbooks that everyone can use and startups can draw inspiration from. So we have actually a very large library of things that we offer to our portfolio companies, but the two ones that we've published and are available for everyone are around performance management and hiring, which are basically, I think, two of the core things that you need to focus when you're scaling.
And these are sort of, I think I read that these are based on interviews that you conducted with Nick, is that right? So this is direct from Nick, the lessons that he learned implementing, the policies that he implemented, scaling and growing Revolut.
Exactly.
On both of those points, performance management and hiring, can you give one or two what to do, what not to do tips for companies who are kind of looking to achieve the success that Revolut has achieved?
I would start with performance management. I think it's a core thing that often is not top of mind for people. I think top things that you need to keep in mind for that is it needs to be a CEO priority. It needs to be something that is directly handled by the CEO's team, not something that is tucked under HR, because it's really about like the core capabilities of your organization. The second thing is it needs to be systematic. You have a system, you have a framework, people know what to expect when they're assessed, people know like how to improve, people know like how their compensation is affected or how their career path is affected. And then the third thing is make it as tangible as possible. Like the way you assess performance should not be based on someone's, own criteria, or it's not something that's based on vague ideas of what good performance looks like or not. Find these observable behaviors within your organization that is what you want everyone to strive to, and like make them into a code of performance and a framework that everyone can easily go through.
And what about some things definitely not to do? Is there anything where, more like common practices that are often detrimental to the company?
I mean, I think around performance, what we've seen like not work that well is when it's something that's handled by HR, it becomes more of like a sort of admin task that you need to get through like once every 6 months because it's like it's a sort of requirement as you scale. That's, I think, for me, something not to do.
Yeah.
And then I think also that's something that hasn't worked that well, which also we've seen in our portfolio companies and as you scale, it's 360-degree reviews. So that's something that has not been generally very successful. So instead, our system, what we recommend is like doing one-on-one reviews with the direct report on the manager, and like doing also like a self-assessment based on the framework.
And I went to the Revolut kind of people talk this morning, which was great. One of the things that stood out was that Nick has got 40 reports, right? And and 20, was it 20 or 40?
Many, definitely many.
It was loads, and I was like, and that seems so much to manage and so hard to handle. Do you think that should be the role of the CEO, is to stay as close to each department as possible, each department head, and be the person who is kind of reviewing their performance and being really in the details?
I mean, I think it depends a lot on the type of the CEO, right? I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way. I think as long as you have like the right systems in place to support like that approach, that's the most important thing. For sure, like being on top of things, and like in our playbooks, like we're saying, like making sure the CEO is on top of things is like very important. Having a CEO office is very important as well, because you need the right infrastructure around you to be able to do that.
Amazing. And I want to get back into Quantum Light.
Yeah.
You must have such an amazing resource of data points, right? You must be able to track and see the performance of so many startups from around the world and around Europe. Are there any sort of like trends or changes that you've seen, in the last year or so, couple of years, as we've seen this sort of like wave of AI companies appear?
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is, in a sense, go beyond that, right? There's always like areas that, of course, come up, and we see many companies of different types of things over time.
Yeah.
But I think what our models allows us is to really capture like the core patterns that make a company, like that can pick out a company in a sense. So there are certain things like in the way that they grow, or in the certain like in the background of the team or the founders that could be good indicators of success. And it doesn't matter if you're building an AI company, it doesn't matter if you're building a cybersecurity company. So I won't say there are any particular trends, but rather I think core characteristics of.
And what are those things that you or the model applies particular weight to?
Many things. Like we've included a lot of different features. The score is a composite of dozens of different features right now. So there are certain things that would carry like a lot of weight in different situations, like whether it is the background of the founder, whether it is the other investors, whether it is like the valuation dynamics of a company, which is also quite important. Really interesting.
So is the model then also based on the best in class of what's come before? So maybe you're looking at not just companies that you would have been interested in investing in, but looking at somebody like Meta or Google.
Of course.
Or like, these companies, what enabled them to be successful? What was the profile of the founders? And trying to find that almost like the perfect.
Of course. I mean, the model is trained on historical data and like looking at all, what the great companies in the past have been like. So like from the point that we're able to like retrieve data, we're incorporated into the model.
Amazing. And how how much are you changing that model or changing the parameters to kind of adjust for the new environments that we're in?
Of course, it's always evolving. We're always trying to add new data sources. We have a top tech team that's working on it. They're great AI scientists, and they're building and like really trying to be always on the forefront of what's up. And then, of course, expanding as much as we can the scope of that model.
And so Nick has built this VC firm. He's also running Revolut. Has he, from your experience in interviewing him for the playbooks, has he taken different approaches to building, a fintech global tech giant versus building a whole new different type of doing VC?
I mean, I can't really speak much to that because on the day-to-day we have our own GP and CEO, Ilya, who's running Quantum Light. I feel like from our perspective, we're building on top of like a lot of his own practices and ways of doing things, and our playbooks we're also implementing. So definitely we're following that mentality, right? Yeah.
And in your view, what are the differences between, what makes a great operator, someone who can execute, build products, versus what can make a great VC?
Well, I think it's connected. I think what makes a great VC is like having a lot that operator mindset. I think like the most value we can add to our portfolio companies has been just like helping them with real world experience of what scaling has been like. So I think like what makes a great VC is just having that experience firsthand. And I think us drawing from the experience of Revolut and having like people from Revolut on our team has been the most valuable things as we can do as investors.
Amazing. Well, look, thank you so much for joining me. I've loved chatting.
Thank you for
I think it's such an interesting proposition that Quantum Light has built, and it's refreshing to see VC done in a different way.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's very exciting, and definitely there's much more to come.
Love it. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Hello and welcome back to Scaling Europe show. We're here in Helsinki. I'm here with Carl from Nothing. Nothing has had a phenomenal year. You've had an amazing journey. I want to go straight in the deep end. Europe doesn't have enough consumer hardware companies. You are probably this generation's, or certainly for several generations, the only amazing successful consumer hardware company to come out of Europe. Why do you think that is?
I think the last one is Dyson, or are there any other ones?
I think that's it, right? I was trying to pull a list together, and like Dyson is well known and they've done a great job, but other than that,
I think consumer hardware is just tough in general. Even in the US, what's the last successful case? I don't think there's a lot of them. I think fundamentally it's just like, it's a very different beast to running a software company. The CapEx investment is huge, and the risk tolerance is very low. Like if you make a software feature that doesn't work, you can just pivot and ship something else and change the product. But in hardware, if you already bought all the inventory, like what are you going to do?
You're sort of
I think we have a saying in our industry that most companies, they don't die of starvation. Starvation being lack of growth or lack of demand. They die of indigestion, meaning they have too much inventory. They overestimated their demand, for instance. And then the only thing you can do then is to heavily discount the product and lose a ton of money.
Yeah.
So I think, when we founded, we looked at all the other failure cases before us, because in the last 15 years, nobody has made a smartphone company anywhere in the world, not just in Europe. And my conclusion was that people didn't approach it from a full stack perspective, meaning think about like for us going from an idea to a product, and then after having the product, doing the GTM, marketing and customer service across the world.
Yeah.
Like that machinery is pretty complicated.
Yeah.
From product concept to manufacturing to quality control to sourcing to industrial design to industrial engineering to software engineering, software design. Like the stack is very long.
Yeah.
I think that's the key difference. So if you run an app company, you might have a couple of plates to spin, like product management, GTM, software development, design. That's probably the bulk of it.
Yeah.
But if you run a company like this, you probably have to spin 20 plates at the same time. I think that's the main reason.
And how do you balance that? Like, how do you balance being an incredibly design-led, innovative company with the manufacturing, the capex, and also trying to build an affordable smartphone, which is as good as any other on the market?
I think there's a lot of pragmatism that's needed. When we went out into the market end of 2020 or early 2021, we said that we're going to change the industry. And recently people have been asking, hey, we're going to change the industry, but you haven't changed the industry. Like, you're still shipping earbuds and smartphones. But I think the key difference is the time horizon for hardware. Like, we want to change the industry, but let's be pragmatic about it. If we don't even have the basic infrastructure, how can we change the industry? So the first couple of years, we were just building the foundations. All those skill sets that I talked about, sure, we got a lot of kind of criticism. Hey, you're not doing the next new form factor, you're not doing future stuff, but just be very pragmatic. So when it comes to design, we are good at design by design.
Yeah.
It's not an accident. Because if you think about our context, we entered very mature product categories. We didn't invent the smartphone. We didn't invent wireless earbuds. They were already big categories. So the only way for us to break in is through differentiation on design. Or we could have done like technology differentiation, but that takes years to play out. Design is the fastest way to at least carve out a niche for ourselves. Some people might love our design, and maybe 90% are indifferent, or some people might hate it. It's fine. Just like find our tribe, start from there, build one of the strongest industrial design teams in the world, and expand from there. When you ask about the trade-offs, there's a ton of trade-offs. So first of all, we have to have differentiated design for us to survive. But secondly, it costs a lot of money. Like, our products are transparent.
Yeah.
If we made a non-transparent product, the manufacturing is a lot easier because if there's dust or imperfections, you can't see it.
Yeah.
So in the early days when we're still ramping up our supply chain and our manufacturing, some of our products had dust. And it's an instant return, right? Because customers are buying it for the design, the see-through design. They can't have dust in the design. So we had to reconfigure our manufacturing. Like, now it's clean rooms, like anti-static, anti-dust. Every station on the production line is a self-contained station. And there's a fan on top of every station that blows the dust down. And on the floor, there's a mesh net that you stand on, but under the net, it's water. So the dust gets stuck to the ground. Like,
wow.
It costs a lot to do these kind of things. So
that's amazing. And
it's a balance, but it's a hard balance.
And it must make it harder to scale, right? If every time you want to expand manufacturing, you've got to build this almost like bespoke line that you've built, which is...
And think about it, and we're small compared to the bigger players in the industry, so we already pay more for the components because our procurement volume is lower than having to invest in differentiated design and differentiated manufacturing processes. It all adds to the cost.
If you hadn't done it, I would have said it sounds impossible, right? To have great design, to have an affordable product, to do things differently, to be a small player which is dominated by trillion-dollar companies where you don't have the buying power. It sounds impossible.
Yeah, right? It's a tough business.
Yeah.
I don't recommend others to do this as their first startup.
And can we talk about what's next, right?
Yeah.
You're building the phones of the future. You're kind of integrating AI into the operating systems. Can you talk a bit about what that will look and feel like as a user?
Yeah, I think there's two work streams that we have. One is about feature parity with industry, because if Apple starts talking about Apple Intelligence, consumers are going to start asking, hey, what are you doing? What do you have?
Yeah.
So that part I'm less excited about, but we just got to do it to remain parity and competitiveness in the industry. What I'm more excited about is the future of operating systems, because fundamentally it hasn't really changed for a very long time.
Yes.
It's not just since the first iPhone, because the first iPhone is fundamentally, from a UX perspective, the same as the Palm Pilot back in the day. It's icons, it's apps, it's installing apps, it's having a lock screen and a home screen. But I think that can fundamentally change in the future, because I believe that apps are going to completely go away over time. There will only be one app on your phone, and that's the operating system. It knows you very well. It predicts what you want, and it agentically handles what you want to do, so that you can focus on the things that you're most passionate about in your life, spend time on those things, but all the admin stuff gets taken care of by the system.
And you've built a hardware company, right? That's kind of, you're still very early in your hardware journey, and now you're having to build software. How are you finding that?
It's like playing Super Mario. So you have a new challenge, and you just beat the new level, but the levels keep getting harder and harder. But we had to learn a lot of tricks just to get to where we are today. For instance, when we just started, I had never raised money before. Like that was a new thing we had to learn. We had never built our own supply chain before. That was a new thing. So it's just about, I've heard other people say it in different ways, but as the founder, you just gotta keep becoming better because your level or your ability is the cap for the company. So if you can't upgrade yourself, you can't upgrade the company.
You're limiting the company. Yeah, that's really interesting. And can we talk a bit about the funding journey that you've been on? Like, how difficult was it in the early days to get investors, especially building in Europe, to kind of buy into this vision when there hasn't been a new phone maker, consumer tech company out of Europe for a long time?
I think I'm pretty fortunate because this is my second startup. So the early rounds were easy. Seed round, very easy. Series A, very quick. We've got some warm intros. But over time, it gets harder and harder because you need to raise more money, and the pool of potential investors who want to invest in something like this gets more and more limited. But at the same time, they look more at the numbers, right? So I think we're really fortunate that our team is very commercial as well, and our numbers are
amazing,
very positive. So I would say, like, the vision we have, it's still non-consensus. But you can't ignore the numbers. So that the numbers are the reason why we were able to raise money. And
can you share, I think last year, you reported like $500 million in revenue, I think it was. Can you share anything about this year or vision for future years about where you think you'll be at?
I think revenue is not that interesting, but this year we're almost doubling compared to last year. For me, it's all about, like, can we deliver breakthrough products that consumers love? Because revenue or profit or fundraising, that's only like a output of a good input, and the key input for us is great products.
And I think you're launching or you're aiming to launch the new operating system next year, right? Or like AI embedded devices.
So we will start doing more AI native stuff starting next year. But for the full operating system vision, I think we need some more time.
And so what opportunity do you see with the first AI native devices? Like, how transformative do you think that could be for nothing?
I think to explain this, maybe we take a step back and explain our vision for the future of how humans and computers interact. I think context will be really important. For me personally, I only use ChatGPT now, but a year ago I was using like 3 or 4 different apps all the time. Once they launched memory, I found the answers to get better and better for myself. So that's why I only use it. I think that's where the future is going. The core of the ecosystem of our lives will be around context. So all the devices will just flow around context. So either they're there to capture context, because the more context, the better the output. Or they're there for us to give it a command so it can action on the context it already has on us. Now, if you think about the smartphone, it's still going to be one of the most context-rich devices. We do a lot on our phones and we carry it around. But sometimes it's in our pocket. Sometimes we're walking around in the city. We need a different form factor to help us capture context. This is what we believe now. In the coming 2-3 years, I think consumers will also warm up to this idea that, oh wow, I give it more context, I get better returns. So therefore, that's what's going to drive the formation and the scale of new form factors. What is it going to be? Nobody knows, right? So if nobody knows, and we can't guarantee that whatever we ship is going to be a breakthrough success, then we should take a software development approach to the problem. Ship fast, iterate fast, listen to feedback, and have great taste. And
how are you thinking about the future of physical AI? There's OpenAI and Johnny Ive, supposedly developing a new device. We saw the Humane AI pin. What's your view on that world of physical AI, especially from like OpenAI is particularly interesting as a front-end model. Do you think they're well positioned as a model company to move into hardware, or do you think you actually got a better advantage going from hardware to software and AI?
I think the key inputs to build the future is data and scale.
Yeah.
We're talking about consumer here, and also consumer-based three things, right? So who has that? Smartphone companies, they have it, right? Smartphones, scale, data, consumer.
Yeah.
Consumer-focused AI companies have that as well.
Yes.
OpenAI, huge consumer business,
Yeah.
right? A lot of data and great models. And I think social media companies
Interesting. Okay.
also have a great play. So
Yeah.
Meta, ByteDance,
Yeah.
so they're all well positioned.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And why do you think you can win? You know, with the AI devices, what advantages do you think you have over, especially a lot of the incumbents, people like Apple, who are huge market share, $1 trillion companies, but potentially, well positioned, but arguably not as innovative as they once were?
I think Apple has a very high chance of winning.
Really?
Actually, because the moat they built allows them to be slow and considered, and let other people make experiments that fail, and then do the things that are successful.
Yeah.
They've earned the right to do so. I don't really agree with their some of their lock-in decisions.
Yeah.
They've they have monopoly over a lot of things now. Even iMessage, it's like text messages. One company shouldn't own it.
Yeah.
Maybe in Europe people don't have the context, but in the US it's all iMessage.
Yeah.
So if you don't have iMessage, you cannot sell a phone to a US consumer. Why do we have an opportunity? I think we are not too big and we're not too small.
Okay.
It kind of sucks to be both.
Yeah.
If you're too small, even if you have a great vision, it's hard to have the infrastructure to really ship a high quality product. Because when you're doing consumer products, there's no tolerance for prototypes. Like, I'm paying money to buy a product that works on day one. So we've seen some startups who have great ideas. Maybe they're early, exciting ideas, but they just didn't have the infrastructure to create a high quality user experience.
Yeah.
Now, if you're too big, you're already very successful, you're profitable, you might be public. Most likely the founder is not driving the ship anymore.
Yeah.
Then you have a lot of vested interests. Like, take Apple, for instance. They have a huge developer ecosystem. If Apple were to say the future is just the OS with no apps, it's going to be a revolt, right?
Yeah.
And
They're too entrenched,
developer ecosystem is already very profitable for them, so they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So I think, when there's a new technological breakthrough, usually the cards in an industry will reshuffle. And usually, not always, the incumbents don't become super successful in the next cycle.
And it seems like, because, to your point, they're like unwilling to sacrifice the core businesses that they've already built that are amazingly successful.
Like when we were younger, when I was younger, you're probably younger than me, Nokia and BlackBerry were the top smartphone companies or phone companies.
Yeah.
I never imagined when I was a kid that Nokia wouldn't be around.
Yeah, and just like that, it's... Yeah. I always want to ask quickly, why Europe? Right, you're building an incredibly hard business to build. Why have you chosen to build your business in Europe?
Yeah, my initial thesis was, it's been like a roller coaster. Initially very bullish.
Yeah.
Great creativity in Europe. We do our designs out of London. Europe also has great marketeers because there's a lot of great brands out of Europe, especially in the fashion space. So great talent pool for those locations. But then it kind of went down for me. Like, there's no ambition.
Yeah.
Like, it's very hard to find people who want to build the next generational consumer tech company here.
Yeah.
Like, we need to build a culture of high ambition.
Yes.
We need to find people who want to be on this journey. Like, you can also work for Tesco if you don't want to do this. Like, this is not Tesco, it's different, right? But then I'm now bullish again because as I've been in the ecosystem for longer, we know how to select people much better. And something I'm particularly excited about is investing in the youth, in the next generation. Because Europe has some of the best universities in the world.
Yeah.
So maybe when these really smart and competitive kids, they join bigger companies, they get taught a lot of bad habits, and we don't want to hire them anymore. But if we get them fresh out of school, we can train them ourselves.
Yeah.
We can train the ambition, we can select for the best
yeah,
fits.
and even younger than that, we're seeing younger and younger founders who are like skipping university and building something at 18, and it's this new generation of I don't know, young people are much more willing to take risks than I think my generation were, and it's amazing to see.
And we're seeing in the news that big companies are hiring less young people. I don't know why. They think AI can automate all of the stuff, or so. Then it's even easier for us to get the best talent.
Yeah, but it's interesting that in the world that people who are like me, starting their own business from scratch, small. Everybody wants to hire young people. It's like I'll take a young, ambitious, hardworking person over anyone with 5 years of experience who's sort of like, I don't know, indoctrinated with low ambition and low drive, which I think is an amazing trend to see.
Yeah, we're going to be more aggressive on this.
Let's do it. All right, well, Carl, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great to chat.
Thanks for having me.
Love it. Hello and welcome back. I'm here with Crane, who's an amazing European entrepreneur building a really cool company here from Europe. Can you talk a bit about what you've built and how it's gone so far?
Yeah, so maybe I can start with where the why, how the company came about. So I'm a repeat founder. I've previously founded a company called Epyon, and we made charging equipment for electric cars. That company was acquired by ABB, and in my last year there I had an experience that we had a customer who was very secretive about what they were doing with our equipment, and so I had to go to San Francisco and I booked an extra day and I visited them, and it turned out to be a self-driving company. So and this was 2017. So it was the first time I came to a warehouse and they built like an indoor test track, and it was the first time I saw automated mobility.
Amazing.
And it's like super amazing.
Yeah.
They were using our chargers to charge the car still by hand, and that sort of in the end inspired the whole concept of Roxys, our current company.
Amazing. And I guess like what is the problem that you're solving, right? You're kind of building EV charging but for the new wave, and kind of rooted in robotics, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so the problem actually comes from this the origin story that I realized, like, okay, first of all, autonomous mobility is really cool and important to the world.
Yeah.
And secondly, if we take the driver out of the vehicle, the built world or the infrastructure is not compatible. The interface is broken because everything in the built world is built from the assumption that there is a driver behind the wheel. So charging, which was my background, of course, but also like entering a parking garage, or going into a car wash, like the interface is broken if you take out the driver. So if you want to make autonomous mobility succeed at scale, you basically need to fix the interface. So there needs to be a company that fixes the interface, and that's Roxys. So starting with charging, so keeping the autonomous vehicle fleet charged in a hands-free manner.
And what stage are you at of product development, commercialization?
Early commercialization. So basically, we have revenue, we have customers. We started in more of the behind-the-fence autonomous vehicle market, logistics and port terminals with automated vehicles. And last year, we actually won a first major contract in robotaxi space, and we are in multiple contract discussions after that. But it launched us into the robotaxi space, and we're a Series A stage, basically.
Amazing. And when you look to the future, robotaxis has got to be the biggest opportunity, right? Or are you still looking at kind of the early stuff that you kind of saw traction with?
So, autonomous mobility in general is like a gigantic opportunity.
Yeah.
So, like summing up all the use cases, we come to like a 500 billion TAM for our product. But it starts with robotaxi at scale. So, we started in more like the behind-the-fence logistics, where we are still active. That's a large market, but not as large as robotaxi. And robotaxi is about a 3 billion TAM.
Yeah.
And that's happening since last year. Last year was sort of the ChatGPT moment for robotaxi in the US and China. Hopefully coming to London soon. So coming to Europe.
What have you learned from your first time founding? You built in this space, you built an EV charging company. What have you learned that you're now applying to your second time?
There's probably like 1,000 things,
yeah.
But so validate as fast as you can. Get your product out there. Just learn from the market. I think that's super important. A lot of tactics, like how do you run a business, how do you build a business, how to deal with investment. Like as a founder, first-time founder, like there's like you need to be an expert in like 20 domains in parallel, which you've never dealt with before. So there's all kinds of things. But I would say like. Be agile, just learn, just go out to the market and validate. And validation is people paying for your product, right? So if people are paying for your product, that's the ultimate validation. Try to get there as fast as possible.
And can we talk about your journey and experience building, a hardware robotics company? It's very kind of frontier technology that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
And you've been building that from Europe, from the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about building anywhere else?
Well, we didn't think at first, but our main customer base now is actually in the United States.
Yeah.
But Europe has like amazing tech talent. So basically, our technology hub is really in Europe. Today, our customer front end is more in the US than Europe because autonomous mobility is just moving faster in the US.
Yeah.
But it's a global play. Autonomous vehicles will be on any continent, and I think Europe can leverage the tech talent that's there, and that's also what we do. We have like a super amazing tech team in the Netherlands. So yeah. And
that's what I hear frequently from founders is that the product, the research, development, that those teams can be truly global, standard leading from Europe. But the commercialization is often in the US, and generally true for like software. But it's interesting to hear that it's the same for you.
Yeah.
Are you looking at China at all?
Looking at China, but more for inspiration. China is probably maybe even ahead of the US at the moment in autonomous mobility. But we're not looking at China as a market today because it's Europe and US together is already pretty
big market.
It's already a pretty big market. China's really difficult. So in my previous role, I actually spent a lot of time on China.
Yeah.
Been to China a lot, but to build in China from Europe is really tough. There's a very tight political connection in China often. It's not easy. So it's not the challenge we want to take on or play it at this stage of the company, right? So.
Yeah. And do you see yourself moving out to the US and kind of having a permanent position there?
Not planned currently, but I'm in the US roughly every 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow, so frequently.
Yeah, frequently.
And what's it been like fundraising? Because this is it's a hard problem to solve, hardware, deep tech. We haven't seen levels of deep tech investment, especially in Europe compared to the US. I think they invest something like 20 times the amount in deep tech that we do in Europe.
Yeah.
How have you found that to date?
I mean, the biggest difference I see is like the check sizes are larger, the outcomes are also larger. If I look back, since I've been in the space for quite some time, like when we started Epyon, there was hardly, I don't think there was any deep tech VC in Europe. Just was, like there were very few VCs and they were all software focused and there were no deep tech VCs. I mean, today we're in much better shape. I think there are a couple of really good deep tech VCs in Europe. It's improved a lot, but still if you compare to the US, especially like ambition level, ticket size is larger, ambition level is higher,
What have been some of the most challenging things about building from Europe?
From Europe with the front end in the US market, I mean, it's very difficult to run a company on 2 continents. In my previous roles, I also had that experience. It's not like you get the thing right, you spend one-time effort to get it right. It's like a constant attention. So try to act as one team across the Atlantic. It's just a constant challenge. It's solvable. It's just as a founder, you need to realize like this needs daily attention to make sure that the interface with 2 teams, if it's US or China or somewhere else, works. And since we are in deep tech, the front end operation is local, right? So in software, sometimes you can scale with very minimal presence, but in our case, we need physical presence. That's making sure the interface works. It's a constant challenge, but also a nice challenge to have.
And what about? Has there ever been like regulatory hurdles, either in this business or the last, building? Like I said, like the forefront of technology and innovation. EV charging it's a relatively new technology, but often requires a lot of like planning or permissions or making sure that you're compliant with the regulations. How have you found that in Europe?
For autonomous vehicles on public roads, open road legislation is like the key hurdle. US has cracked the nuts in like more than, I think like 60% of the states, they have some kind of framework. UK is actually the first in the Eurozone to have a nationwide autonomous driving regulation. So that's why like Waymo and Wave and all the, also Lyft, I think, is going to the UK next year. So in Europe, we are more fragmented, so it takes longer. But every country is working on that legislation. Basically, in the US, it's mostly cracked. In China, it's very centralized, so it's easier to not crack. Europe is very decentralized with all our nations.
Yeah. When you look at the autonomous vehicle market, people like Wave and Waymo, who do you think can come out on top? Who do you think is going to win? And do you have an advantage working with someone like Wave versus Waymo being European? Is there anything there?
We work with everybody. Yeah. I think there's not going to be one player wins all because there's so many segments, so many. Robotaxis is just the first segment. There's autonomous delivery, which in China, by the way, is scaling like crazy already. Autonomous delivery, there's like a blend between car rental and autonomous mobility. Yeah. There's automated valet parking also in China taking off. So basically you get out of your car and the car will park itself in the parking structure. Those kind of use cases. So yeah, I think there will not be one winner. I think in the end game is that there's going to be like a dozen of large like tech providers. Yeah. But then it's a whole layered stack. So basically you have the tech platforms, you have the ride-hail providers, B2C, then you have like the operations, fleet financing, operations stack, the hub builders community. So there are like companies like Avis actually in the US are now stepping into the game of building hubs for robotaxi, service hubs. So it's like there will be many players, I think.
And when you look to the future of your business, do you see yourself working more with those like hubs? You know, is your technology going to be deployed there? Or do you also think it will be, you know, on the road, in people's homes? Do you have an area that you want to build and focus for first?
So the next 5 years we are focused on like the fleet application, which is mainly hubs. So that's a key focus for now.
Amazing. And like, what do you need to get right over the next couple of years to kind of take your business to the next level?
So what we need to get right is like when you're running an autonomous fleet, money is earned on the road. So the vehicle needs to be on the road all the time. Yeah. Every downtime, which is for example the time spent in a depot to get charged or to clean the vehicle, is just for robotaxi it's $1 per minute roughly revenue loss if you spend it. So like getting the reliability right of the system, like making sure that there's like 99.99 reliability of the solution. Vehicle comes in, it comes out exactly after 30 minutes on the other side and back to the road. It's very predictable. I think to get that right at scale, like hundreds of locations with the exact same process at a really high reliability, that's sort of the challenge we have to get right. We are completely focused on that challenge, but it's not an easy. If it was easy, there would be 10 other companies doing it. So, yeah.
And when you look at you talked about like having the car cleaned and kind of maintained. When you look at the future of these hubs of autonomous vehicles, are you looking at other ways that you could solve it with robotics? So, not just the charging, but also the cleaning, the maintenance. Would you like to eventually be the full suite for maintaining a fleet, or do you think it's better to focus just on the charging?
Yeah. So our product focus, like 5 years out, is like to be the complete technology stack for a lights out service facility. Yeah. So we start with charging. It's the biggest problem they have. A vehicle is brought back to the depot because the battery is empty, and because it's there, they do like a quick clean or something like that, a quick inspection of the vehicle. But charging is like the crucial function. So that's the first focus now. We are 100% focused, or I would say 90% focused on that, and then on the inspection and interior clean. So we have built like proof of concepts for automated interior clean, etc. So the vision is that within 5 years we'll have like completely lights out facilities where autonomous vehicles go in and come out cleaned, inspected and charged the other side. And that's sort of the concept of the fuel station of the future, because if we look at the whole fleet in the world, the step-by-step portions are going to be transitioned to autonomous mobility.
Yes.
And these three functions are going to be needed in any scenario. So it's sort of the tech stack for the gas station of the future.
Amazing. Well, look, thank you so much for joining me. I think what you're building is like an amazing company, really at the forefront of kind of cutting-edge technology. And it's amazing to see it kind of being led by Europeans from Europe.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hello and welcome back. I'm joined now by Eva. Eva is a team lead, volunteer. We're here to get the behind the scenes scoop, what it's like working, volunteering, being a part of Slush. So how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's been like a really, really crazy months, because people may think like, oh my God, all they have to do is like come and volunteer. But there is so much work behind the scenes. So it's been crazy. But today, when you see everyone in person, because we have volunteers flying like not only like from Helsinki, but all over Europe. I had a volunteer fly from Amsterdam, Paris, Ukraine, just like everywhere. And then everyone here being together is like a really special feeling.
I bet, how long have you been here for?
So like this year or in general?
This year.
Oh yeah, so okay, basically we arrived like quite early. We arrive on Sunday, so we will come to Slush offices and we have team building and a lot of things to do together. And then we have this coolest thing ever, which is called tour of the conference before everything starts. So we wear a helmet and we wear like a full-on like gear of like everything. Yeah. And because we genuinely need to learn like everything and where everything is. So that's why like when you have this badge, I don't know if you guys like learned, we like need to know every single spot of like what is where is how, and whatever.
How does this look before it becomes Slush?
It is fully empty. There's nothing. And then I think what's like the coolest part, and that team to me is like the most impressive, is the lights team.
Yeah.
Like the lights and the sound team, just like figuring everything
amazing.
out.
It's like being in like a nightclub or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, and this year there's like multiple different lights that are being involved. So like every light has a theme. So it's just like been like a really, really cool experience of like seeing everyone together. And then it's from like the physical part, but to like the tiniest part of like this room should have the chairs that are this tall. This room should have the chairs that are that tall. So if you go around, you're gonna see how much thought has been like put into this over like months and years. And these volunteers are just someone who, they come here for like a year or 2 or sometimes 5 years. I have a volunteer on my team and I'm her lead, and she's been a volunteer for 5 times. And she's been a lead. So they keep coming back and then they get like super cool jobs. They start startups because they're just very much like around it. Like there's a really cool volunteer department as well called Speaker Buddies. So for every keynote speaker, they get their own personal volunteer to like guide them through and take them to the audience and
Interesting.
stuff.
Is that like the best volunteer job?
Oh my God, it's like competitive. So like that's the whole thing I was like telling you before. So there is a Slush volunteering recruiting that's already starting kind of like in the summer. So like it's very, very early. And you get like a list of like thousands of names. It's like YC. Like everything is out there. There is a deadline, and then you have to select a few, but you only have a choice, like out of thousands, you can only pick 5. So it's like really, really intense interview to see who's going to be the best fit for your team, but you can kind of put a preference. Okay. But the teams go from as kind of like silly as like, there is like a trash collecting team because Slush is very focused on sustainability. So this team is just making sure that everything, because you see everything is so clean. There's like this is their job. They're just ensuring that there is no waste and there's KPIs and everything and that. Then there is like the truck team for like driving stuff around, and that's why they ask you if you have a driving license, so maybe you can qualify for that. I think the coolest thing is definitely like Speaker Buddies, because then you can be taking like Unicorn founder to the stage
and meet people,
getting to know him, and then definitely like the investor team. So I'm leading the investor office hours, and then also the LP teams, which is like very unique for conferences to get limited partners who invest in venture capital funds. Ooh. So if you're just a student at university and getting to meet someone who, if you had to work in VC, you would meet like 10 years after. I think that's a really good team to get into.
Yeah. So is there like a clear hierarchy of those are the best jobs, these are the worst jobs, and then how do they get distributed? Like how do you get the best job versus how do you get the worst job?
Exactly. Because I feel like but that's kind of the beauty of it. Even me now, because it's been like 3 years of like just, and I like have a full-time job, like I'm an adult, like I don't need to do this, but like I'm so interested in like conference management from seeing it, that I feel like a hard job must be like the food distribution as well. Figuring out how to get everything at the right time. So it depends really what your interests are in the long term. Media is also like a really competitive volunteer role to get, because then they can get to meet like super cool people and like get really good portfolios for themselves. But I think for me, because I'm a VC founder type of person, I think you always want to be like in the investor side. So those are really hard to get, and the kids, the backgrounds are just like engineers, Y Combinator. We have a person working for like 3 YC companies, and he like took like 3 days off just to be a volunteer at Slush.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you're a team lead.
Yeah.
How many people have you got in your team?
Yeah. So basically, like I'm in a team that's called Investor Office Hours. Yeah. And before I was in an LP team. What's cool about Investor Office Hours, but it's different even for me, is that we're actually at a conference. So we're responsible for like 2 real estates that are like very, very big over here. Yeah. So not only that I have to recruit my volunteers to kind of like recognize these investors, make sure that the mics are on, teach the whole like culture about like what to ask, what not to ask. Plus ones, all these like secret things that I care about. But it's also just like protect the venue, make sure that
it doesn't burn down.
Doesn't burn down. If it does, everyone has like, I have one volunteer with the light technician, one volunteer bringing the lunch to like everyone occur. So that's a cool team. I have 7 volunteers just on my team. And then there's another team lead who has 7 on his. So in total we're 14 with me. And then there's one person above me taking care of all of us and one full-time slusher. That's when that person, like her whole like year, she's been trying to organize these office hours. Then she recruits Mateos, who's my team lead. And then I recruit the 7. And then we all kind of like get together.
Amazing. How many volunteers are there?
Total? This year I think it's 1,400.
I mean, it's amazing. Like the volunteers here are so good. It's like, as soon as we got here, we were like, oh, this setup's not going to work. Can we try something else? And within like 5 minutes, they brought a table, they brought new chairs, tablecloth, everything was set up. And like,
how was your experience? It's like, because I've never been to like the media team and like volunteers. Like, how many have you had? Like, do they come? Do you approach?
There's so many people there.
Amazing.
And they're like, they'll go and fetch people, they'll bring people over, they'll just like help with anything.
It's like our whole like mentor is like a 7-star service.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, we had to take tests. Like my team had like to take a test of like, if this investor was to do this, would you do A, B, or C? Like, so it's just like,
it's just about blowing people away.
But then I feel like it stays with you forever, and then like that's what wants you, to like come back. And like this year there's like a volunteer lounge, so like we have our whole own like lounge full of volunteers.
Cool.
Everyone gets a headshot, everyone gets a merch, and like you stay very connected to these people.
It becomes like a real community.
It becomes a real community on its own. So I think like it's a really Slush-like thing. Like, and then there's a quote of like an investor for my specific like department, investor office hours, who was like, and a very, very big fan, like top tier. He was like, Slush is the only conference in the world we're gonna have 5 volunteers guide you to your bathroom. He was like, I felt like you don't get it anywhere else.
And what happens at the end of Slush? Do you guys have like a huge party? Do you do a massive clear up? What happens?
Yeah, so basically like it's also cool. Like I feel like the training is really like this year we changed quite a few things. So that's also really good about Slush. You'll see like this year everyone's gonna ask you like, what can we do better? Like what could we do like even better? So this year we have every day like a debrief at 7:20 a.m. even though the conference starts at 8 to kind of like prepare everyone. Does anyone have any specific feedback on what went incredibly well that we can do again or what went worse? And then we have the same thing happening at like 6 p.m. today. We have a big debrief and everyone takes photos and it's really emotional because you're like, we did this like after all these years. And then now when it's done, there's like a special volunteer party for all the volunteers and they're gonna make, let's say, like potentially this conference like a sauna or like some separate rooms. So they really
fun.
Like a person who's leading volunteers is almost like, they're gonna be the best HR of any like company in the world. But it's just everyone's doing like a really good job. I'm really proud of everyone, and I think it's so important for Europe as well because it like lets someone who maybe intimidated to apply for these type of jobs like investor or like VC or for a startup, but this is like their first stepping stone.
First like introduction to the tech community. And we saw that report from Excel about how many ex-Slush people go on to become founders, and there's so many. It's like,
maybe I feel like I've seen that on Europe. Exactly, on Scaling Europe. Exactly.
It was great, and it's because it's like you introduce young people to tech and investors and founders, and it kind of inspires them to do. Like I think we should have it in every city.
It should like, really be like like we put like I don't know X. Yeah, exactly. They put like I don't know X Goldman, X this. Like I've been like on the hiring side as well. If I see X Slush,
it's great.
What I know is that the customer service is going to be there.
And also they care, right? They're invested in tech. They're like been interested for a long time.
So like it's been like really fun. But I think even exploring those like more niche, every year there is like some new volunteer thing that we're like, wait, we can think of like a volunteer calculating like the reductions of the things that like, the equipment, the finances, they do everything. And I've noticed it maybe like a thing in Finland as well, which is could be interesting thing for you to explore further as you're doing the content. Aalto University, who they're really connected to, it's mostly where we get our volunteers from. And they started developing that mindset that you could be. I was invited to speak at an aerospace event, and they have the like coolest aerospace lab. And then the person who's like running the lab, he's also like fully filming, like having all the cameras. I thought he was the cameraman. He's like, no, I own this lab.
No way.
So it's like a very versatile
amazing
experience.
Yeah, I mean, and it's an amazing city to do it in.
Yeah. And then this year it's a cool one as well, which I feel like it's like a exclusive. We started introducing this thing which is called a high school volunteer. So
going even younger.
Wow. So yeah, we have on my team, and I think she's the most mature like person that I've like ever met, a high schooler who like got 2 days of high school to be able to volunteer at Slush Investor Office Hours.
Cool, yeah.
So that's like super cool. And
that's
then
amazing.
Like, yeah, you know, some of them are like not even 18 and then they're like next to like the biggest investors in the world. So
cool.
They're doing like a really good job in volunteer.
Well, look, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh my God, of course.
It's amazing to hear about the behind the scenes and thank you for doing it and all the volunteers. It's amazing.
Yeah. No, of course.
You're going to do it next year?
Next year, I'm like thinking that I'm definitely gonna like do the side events and stuff and everything that I do because like, you know, I do a lot of things at Slush, but I would honestly want to do like something that it's like a team that may not seem like appealing to someone who's an investor, just to see how hard they work and how do you even manage to, you know, like build the lights. Like if I could,
cool.
But it's hard to get recruited, right? Because you have to like, you have to be selective. So I have to like maybe do a summer internship to be able to be a volunteer for lights. But yeah, I'm gonna have a look. But like best team, best people, and we're so glad that, you know, like you invited us to like speak and represent volunteers because I think they're such a crucial part of this.
It's amazing.
Organization.
It just wouldn't work without volunteers.
Yeah.
So, thank you, and let's stay in touch.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome back for the final interview of the day. I'm here with Dari from Harmonic, who are of course sponsoring the coverage, so thank you very much. It's great to have you on board. Can you just like quickly introduce what's your role, what does Harmonic do for those who don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the head of growth. For Harmonic, we call ourselves the startup discovery engine.
Yeah.
The reason we use this discovery word is that we think it encompasses the sourcing, screening, and evaluation part of just dealing with startups, whether you're investing in them or selling to them or just generally interested in them.
Yeah.
And we sell to people who are any of the above.
Yeah. Amazing. And how's it going so far?
It's been great. This year specifically has been tremendous. The business kind of hit a bit of an inflection point around Slush last year. Kind of things started to take off for us. We had a unicorn outside of the investor day, so maybe that had something to do with it. We're seeing use cases spread into corporates and growth capital and stuff like that, but obviously our bread and butter and bedrock of the operations is serving VCs, and we're lucky to work with some of the best funds in the world.
Amazing. Can you touch on like some of the use cases, some like stories from how people have used it to kind of source and select, to evaluate companies?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the funds that have the kind of like say most differentiated deal flow through Harmonic are the ones that have a strong thesis around where like talent is centralized and a unique one, and they marry it to their ability to win those deals. So if somebody is really interested in cybersecurity, they will be monitoring people inside of Palo Alto Network, seeing those that have like fast progression and talking to them even before they decide to start a business. Like seeding the idea of starting something, going beyond stealth, which is kind of, that's pretty interesting to see how far down the line the market is moving.
And people are just having to get earlier and earlier because of the technology that's available. You know, I was talking to an investor who was friends with a DeepMind like scientist, and they're on LinkedIn, and all they did was update the end date of their role from DeepMind, and it was from a few years ago, but they just never had said that their job had ended, and they kind of like clicked it, and then they had like loads of people reach out to them, and so people are having to force to go earlier and earlier to find people before they're at DeepMind, right, or before they're thinking about leaving, and like I think it's super interesting. I think one of the best stories I heard was Harry talking about PKI.
Yeah.
Right, you know, that was a video went super viral. They found it on Harmonic. Within like 24 hours, they had like a term sheet ready to go. And that was like 6 months ago or something. And they just announced their Series A on Monday this week.
Yeah.
So it's like an amazing investment. They've gone from 0 to 4 million ARR. But it's,
Absolutely. And it's like those signals, the DeepMinds, the Palantirs, the like renowned universities, table stakes at this point. They're just getting snapped up immediately. So if you're, not a huge brand name VC that just has demand flowing inside the door, like you're going to have to figure out a way how to differentiate your opportunity set. And I think like the most important takeaway from me is like fish in pools where you have some reason to win, like industry expertise, traction, connections, whatever. Because otherwise it's wasted time.
Amazing. Let's talk a bit about your role, your growth, right? And Harmonic has seen amazing growth. Can you talk a bit about what your role actually means? Like, what are you like accountable for, and how do you go about achieving it?
I hate the name. Head of growth. This is just a made-up name for people that don't want to say marketing, I think. But it's essentially what it is.
Marketing.
It's driving demand. It's building out the brand. It's doing a little bit of like product marketing stuff. Essentially everything that goes on before we hand over a qualified lead to the sales team. So that's formulating a deep understanding of what our customers' challenges are, and figuring out how to influence product and messaging and all that stuff to make that stick. I don't mind the marketing word. That's actually what it is, but I guess the industry doesn't like it.
Growth is, I don't know, does it sound cooler? I know it's interesting. Like head of growth it's a title that can mean so many things at different jobs. But like I want to get into, head of growth or marketing, they always are like budget holders, right? And they're always experimenting, they're always trying and testing new things. I want to get into some of the best things you spent money on versus the worst things. And the unicorn example is a great one, because last year you put the unicorn outside the investor day at Slush, things like that. What crazy things have you tried that have worked well and not worked well?
Yeah, I mean that's the best example of like an out of the box thing that we've done. It's pretty much the like Sam Blond way of approaching an event. It's like never just buy a booth and show up. Like that's just deciding to lose in a sea of sameness. If you're going to go big, put a unicorn outside the investor day, figure out how to make your mark outside of the kind of normal channels. And then for us, I think the other component, especially when we were starting early, like dealing with this kind of cold start issue, figuring out how to partner for distribution. We're so lucky to have a platform that people who have a voice with our audience, they want to use. Harry is a great example. Like, how can we figure out a way to have him just share how he's using the platform? And that's going to be tremendously valuable for us. And then gives us the opportunity to carry the conversation forward once we have that initial distribution.
Because I think I spoke to Harry about that video, because he's just so good at content. And I don't think it wasn't even like organized with you. It was like, it was very authentic, very organic.
We just woke up to it.
Cool. He was like, we just made it because it was like, that's what happened. I thought it would be good content, and I like the Harmonic guys, and I was like, that's like the best customer feedback and advocate that you can have.
Absolutely. And the other piece of content that he created was just this random LinkedIn post one day that a tiered one that he'd been walking around Hyde Park with. Found 5 out of the last 9 investments on Harmonic. That was the biggest day in the history of Harmonic.
No way.
Which is kind of hilarious. Like a single LinkedIn
and
post.
It's not planned, right? You build those relationships, and those relationships then pay dividends over time, which is it's amazing. Well, Jerry, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for helping out with sponsoring the coverage. It's you're an amazing partner. So
absolutely,
very
thanks for having me on.
That is a wrap from the Slush coverage here in Helsinki from Scaling Europe. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for joining me. We've had a great time. So please do go check out Harmonic, check out Databricks.